Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my lecture on Chapter 7 of the Kathy Schwalbe textbook, An Introduction to Project Management, 7th edition. And there's enough content here that I'm going to break this up into two parts. So this is part one. And this chapter is about executing projects. And I really like this chapter because it does two things. One is it introduces a lot of kind of conceptual things and tools and techniques related to executing projects. And the other thing is that it follows up with two cases that are in the textbook. One is for a more waterfall traditional project, and one is for a more agile project. Um, as I'm going through the lecture here, I'm going to concentrate on the slides that have to do with the concepts, the tools, and the technique, and not so much on the examples um, from the case studies that are in the chapter. Okay, I'm going to leave those for you to read on your own. So let's get started. The learning objectives I'm going to leave for you to read on your own as well. So project execution is really the big deal. Project execution is one of the PMI process groups, and it's a common way to think of how to divide up all the things that are going on in the project. It's probably the most noticed. It's where we spend the bulk of our time, and when people get it wrong, it leads to bad outcomes and hard feelings. Um, Many of the deliverables and outputs created in other process groups are fairly similar from project to project, but no two projects are executed in quite the same way. Um, so, uh, yeah, that's a good point because as we're going through the other chapters, we're really talking about plans for this and plans for that. And one of the things that I've done to sort of allay your fears that you might be planning forever is saying, well, you can copy previous plans and just tailor them to the project at hand. But and we certainly do execute projects that are similar to previous ones, but here's where the differences I think really show up. So we have here part of a table that comes out of the PMI project, um, project management body of knowledge, or the PMBOK, and it shows all of the knowledge areas. There are 10 of those, so there should be more than one slide. And it talks about what goes on during the executing process. Okay, and then it talks about what the outputs are. And I'll leave you to read through this. This is consistent with the claim that here's where all the action is. Okay, so in terms of the knowledge areas that we're going to cover, this project integration management is one of the PMI knowledge areas. And this is one that I always kind of describe as the secret sauce. It's how do you put it all together? Um, so um, so what what's the project manager going to be doing? Well, they're going to coordinate the planning and execution of the project. They're going to develop and use soft skills. They're going to provide a supportive organizational culture. They're going to break the rules if they need to get the job done. And they're going to capitalize on their product, their business, and their application area knowledge. And they're going to use project execution tools and techniques. That's a lot of what we're going to be talking about. The main outputs during execution are deliverables, work performance data, issue logs, those are helpful, change requests, project management plan updates, project documents updates, and organizational process assets updates. So the deliverables, okay? Most project sponsors would say that the most important output of any project is the deliverables. And here, I think we're talking about the deliverables in terms of the product or the service. You know, there are really two kinds of deliverables. There's the product service kinds of deliverables that people are actually going to use, and then there are project management reports and other artifacts thrown up by the projects that people are interested in, but not quite so much as the product or service itself. Recall that deliverables are products or services produced or provided as part of the project. So there's some examples here of what the deliverables were in the sample projects from the text, and I'm going to leave you to read those on your own. Work performance data. So during project execution, project managers must collect, assess, and communicate work performance information. So we have to keep our eye on things. And there's this great MBWA, management by walking around, which means we're going to have to see what's happening on the project and keep up to date. Are things on time? Are people happy? Are things getting done? All that kind of stuff. Sample work performance data. A common way to summarize work performance information is using a milestone report. Yeah, I think these can be more interesting than trying to show somebody a list of like every task on the project and how it's doing. Milestones, one of the qualifications for being a milestone is its broad interest, right? Recall that a milestone is a significant event on a project, such as completing a major deliverable or awarding a major contract. In addition to listing the milestone, the report lists the planned date for completion, the status, the person responsible for the milestones, and issues and comments. So here's an example of a milestone report from one of the sample cases. And I think these can be very compelling. So I think these are a great way to communicate to the stakeholders how things are going. Now we're going to talk about issue logs. An issue log helps to document, monitor, and track issues that need to be resolved for effective work to take place. An issue is a matter under question or dispute that could impede project success, that can hurt team performance if they're not resolved. A critical issue is anything that prevents progress on scheduled activities. So here's an issue log. Okay, now the good thing about having an issue log, really two things. One is it helps to visualize what could potentially go wrong. Two, as we resolve these things uh, uh, by closing them, it it provides a history. A lot of times issues will come up periodically on a project, and it's very nice to be able to go back and look at how you resolve them, and which you would put into the comments, for instance. And a lot of times people will bring things up just because they think they haven't been thought of or resolved. And issue logs can prevent a lot of churn, just talking about the same things over and over again. Change requests. Okay, so if you're on a traditional project, okay, and you've got documents that are agreed to expressions of the requirements or agreed to expressions of the design. Well, then, as people change their mind about what they want, we need to be able to document that. Not because we want to resist change, but we want to have everybody on the same page. Okay? So here's the kind of thing that a project might do for a change request. And typically, every project would come up with one of these, but we describe the change and who proposed it and all that kind of stuff. We might estimate the impact. How's it going to change the scope? How's it going to change the schedule? Is it going to change the cost? And we're going to take a look at the risk. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in this particular version, what a change request might look like. Um, we need to implement solution to problems. Problems happen every day. Okay. Some people who are project managers might describe their job as just kind of solving problems all day long. Some people enjoy that, some people hate it. Some problems can be avoided by doing a good job of initiating, planning, or monitoring and controlling the project, but other problems can't be avoided. Some common problems encountered during execution are described in the chapter, but project managers must be creative and flexible in dealing with the problems that occur on their projects. It's it, the problems are kind of what the job of project management is about. Here are some problems that could come up during execution. And I won't read them all, but let's just pick a couple. The project sponsor and or other senior managers are not very supportive of the project. The project manager, assume that's you or me, is inexperienced in managing people. Uh, People working on the project are incompetent or unmotivated. Uh, Suppliers are not delivering as promised. Things go wrong. Sample implemented solution to problems. So, okay, so here's an example from uh, the, I think the just-in-time project of some things that were done to solve a problem. Um, Now, here's where we get back into, no, we haven't quite gotten back into it yet. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to leave you to read things in the chapter that have to do with how exactly they solve those problems, and I'll take the larger issues. Um, Conflict management. Okay. Most large projects are high stake endeavors that are highly visible within the organization. When stakes are high, the conflict is never far away, and even small projects with low budgets have conflicts. It's a natural part of work and life in general. Project managers should lead their teams in developing norms for dealing with various types of conflicts that might arise. Now, um, a lot of people are well, people have different kind of tastes for conflict, and um, Some people are comfortable with a lot of conflict, and some organizations are comfortable with a lot of conflict. And some people and organizations, not a whole lot. But the thoughtful, kind of more scientific approach to this is to say that there's sort of an optimal level of conflict happening on your project and a way of dealing with conflict that works optimally for your group and your project. And you, as a project manager, ought to be thoughtful about that. So, one thing would be how did what are the modes in which you and your team handle conflicts? And the modes are sorry about that. Competing, accommodating, avoiding, collaborating, compromising. So if you take a competing approach, it's assertive and uncooperative when people pursue their own concerns at other people's expense. Accommodating is unassertive and cooperative when people neglect their own concerns to satisfy the concerns of other people. Avoiding is unassertive and uncooperative when people neither pursue their own concerns nor those of others by simply not dealing with conflict. Collaborating is both assertive and cooperative when people attempt to work with others to find some solution that fully satisfies their concerns. Compromising is moderate in both assertiveness and cooperativeness, where the objective is to find a mutually acceptable solution that partially satisfies both parties. Okay, and you can see how some of these um, are going to work well, and others less well, and it's kind of going to be tuned to your circumstances. So these conflict handling modes can kind of be mapped out on your standard XY axes with assertiveness on the Y and cooperativeness on the X. So if you are low and low, you're avoiding. If you're high and high, you're collaborating. If you're sort of middle and middle, you're compromising. Okay, and again, some of these things have to do with um, how important the issue is, right? So, for instance, there may be some issues that are not very important to us in which we decide that we want to become accommodating because they're not that big of an issue for us. All right. So we want our team and our project manager and our team members to be kind of tuned in here to the right spot to get the results. Now, is everybody going to be tuned into the same spot? No, they're not. Okay. But the project manager should be thinking about these kinds of modes when kind of thinking about how a conflict is going in the team. Conflict can be good. It produces important results such as new ideas, better alternatives, and motivation to work harder and more collaboratively. Project team members might become stagnant or develop groupthink, conformance to the values or ethical standards of a group if there are no conflicting viewpoints on various aspects of the project. And this is pretty interesting to me because um, uh, teams can have too little conflict. Everybody agrees. Nobody thinks outside the box. they're all on the same train, they're all going to the same place, and that's great, but maybe suboptimal. So research suggests that task-related conflict, which is derived from differences over team objectives and how to achieve them, often improves the performance of the team. Emotional conflict, however, which stems from personality clashes and misunderstandings, often depresses the team's performance. So when we're talking about perhaps having too little conflict, we're probably talking about too little task related conflict. Uh, Too little emotional conflict is probably a good thing. Oh, here's an example of how groupthink got people into trouble. Um, and I'm going to leave you to read this one on your own. Okay. Groupthink uh, can be suboptimal. That's the takeaway. Okay, so let's talk about how to manage the knowledge on a project. Okay. Um, um, so we have a process that's going to create a lessons learned register. So we have two types of knowledge, explicit knowledge and tacit knowledge. Explicit knowledge, this type of knowledge can be easily explained using words, pictures, or numbers, and easy to communicate, store, and distribute. Examples and include things found in textbooks, encyclopedias, those things. Tacit, unlike explicit, tacit knowledge, sometimes called informal knowledge, is difficult to express and highly personal. Examples include beliefs, insight, and experience. It's often shared through conversations, interactions with people. Many organizations set up programs like mentorships, communities of practice, or workshops to assist in passing on tacit knowledge. And this is where I think a lot of the values that we hear about from the Agile people start to pay off. You know, the Agile people really place a lot of emphasis on the fact that we're trying to get the group to succeed, and that we're not trying to create specialists but generalists. And there's a lot of good waterfall teams that I've been a part of that believe the same things. And knowledge transfer is really something that one of those that people on those kinds of teams want to facilitate. So here's an example lessons learned register from the just in time project. So let's talk about managing quality during the executing of the project. So a quality assurance includes all activities related to satisfying the relevant quality standards for a project. Another goal of quality assurance is continual continual or continuous quality improvement. Key outputs in managing quality include a quality report, test and evaluation documents, change requests, project management plan updates, and project document updates. So what are some of the things we could use in terms of tools and techniques while we're executing the project to improve quality? Benchmarking, quality audits, and process analyses. Okay, let's talk about benchmarking first. Generate ideas for quality improvements by comparing specific project practices or product characteristics to those of other projects or products. So, um, it's sometimes helpful to compare ourselves to others, to look at other companies or products or project teams and say, well, what do we admire about them? What would we like to borrow from them? A quality audit is a structured review of specific quality management activities that help identify lessons learned, which can improve performance on current or future projects. Okay, so uh, what have we learned from a quality point of view? And process analysis involves analyzing how a process operates and determining improvements. Now, one good way to do that is just to keep a Kanban board. One of these boards that where we keep track of uh, what are the things that we have to do, what's in progress, and what's done. And most teams keep that kind of board for all the work that's in a sprint and an agile project. You can you can keep that for any kind of a project. And another tool that's pretty helpful are cause and effect diagrams, uh, uh, also called Ishikawa diagrams, because they were, I don't know if invented or first identified by um, the researcher Ishikawa. Um, they they assess in improving quality by finding the root causes of quality problems. So let's just look at, well, here's a Kanban board, okay, on slide number 29. And here on slide 31 is a fishbone diagram or a cause and effect or Ishikawa diagram. So the idea here is that we take some problem that we have, for instance, low course ratings, and then we say we do sort of a hierarchical breakdown. We say, well, what are the major areas that contribute to this problems? And we see like interactivity, content, graphics and fonts, speed, and then we say, well, what are the issues or components that contribute to that, and then we can keep breaking them down. But the idea is for us to find um, the root cause or causes of some quality issue that we want to resolve. Okay. Okay, so let's talk a minute about project resource management. Again, project resources are people and things that are in short supply enough that we need to manage them. For instance, most of us don't need to manage air. We don't need to manage the electricity in the building or the operation of the restrooms or the water in the sinks in the restrooms. Uh, they're not in short supply and they're not things that we need to manage. But the contributors to the team, the number of machines we have, the number of conference rooms that we have, um, the number of testing centers that we have, all of the number of training rooms that we have, all those things are things that we need to manage. So effective use of resources is crucial to project execution. The main processes project managers perform include acquiring the resources, developing the team. A lot of the times, well, there's a lot of resources that are not people that are hard to develop in any kind of a relevant time frame. Like, are you going to develop a training room? Well, I guess you could. You could build a training room. So, okay. And managing the team. Key outputs include physical resource assignments, project team assignments, resource calendars, team performance assessment, change requests, updates to project management plan, enterprise environmental factors, and organizational process assets. Organizational process assets is a PMI term that refers to any kind of records that we keep that facilitate the good workings of our processes on projects. Resource calendars are simply calendars for each resource showing work assignment dates. So we want to be thoughtful and coordinated, right? So whatever we can do to be thoughtful and coordinated about whatever we're doing while we're doing the project is usually worth the investment. And this brings me back to a slide that I skipped. And this is it worth the time? Uh, how long can you work on making a routine task more efficient before you're spending more time than you save? Okay, and so they've got the two axes: how much time you shave off, how often do you do the task, and I think this is over 5 years. So I don't find this diagram all that easy to read, to tell you the truth. But the principle that there are times where we just want to re-engineer things a bit, be thoughtful about how we're doing what we're doing. Um, the team ought to be thinking about continually improving its processes. Okay, and then this is in my experience in managing projects, teams who feel ownership over their process and feel free to maybe try out a new idea or some new scheme for managing some aspect of what the team does. Um, when teams get a feel for that, it can be really powerful. Okay, not only can you have a big impact on the project, but it gives people a sense of well-being to have more input to things that affect their daily work life. Okay, back to live action. Let's talk about motivation. Okay, we've got a bunch of people here. In terms of the resources, we probably are not going to be able to motivate the conference rooms and the machines and all that kind of stuff. But we are going to be able to motivate the people. So project managers have to understand motivation theories to effectively execute projects. Okay. Now, I would probably word that slightly different. Okay. Project managers must have expectations or set expectations in a way that is consistent with motivational theories in order to be effective when they're executing projects. Now, you can come at this from a couple of points of view. Most of the things we're going to talk about are, well, I think when you really understand them, they're common sense, right? So whether you understand this from a common sense, practical point of view, or whether you understand this from a motivational theory point of view, it doesn't matter to me as long as you can make it work on your team. Okay? So when we look at people's motivation, there's intrinsic and extrinsic. And intrinsic, it causes people to participate in activity for their own enjoyment. Extrinsic, extrinsic causes people to do something for a reward or to avoid a penalty. Okay? Intrinsic can be much more powerful than extrinsic. Maslow suggested that people's behaviors are guided or motivated by a sequence of needs. So, this is another theory. So, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, people have kind of levels of needs that have to be satisfied: physiological needs, safety needs, social needs, esteem needs, self-actualization. And once they pass some kind of crucial point, given the more of what addresses that issue, um, doesn't really motivate them anymore. People kind of uh, these are almost like rounds of an electronic game, right? Once you satisfy the physiological, you move on to round two. Once you satisfy the safety, you move on to round three, and then round four, and then round five. So, as a manager, you can be wasting effort on satisfying things that are not in the current round for that employee. So, think about it like that. And then we have another theory here from Frederick Hertzberg that kind of gets at the same issue as the Maslow. He distinguishes between motivational factors, factors that cause job satisfaction, such as achievement, recognition, the work itself, responsibility, advancement, and growth, and hygiene factors, factors that cause dissatisfaction if not present, but do not motivate workers to do more. Examples include larger salaries, more supervision, and a more attractive work environment. So, again, as a project manager, um, you're not going to get an optimal outcome by just putting all your eggs into the hygiene factor basket. Okay? You're going to need to put some things into the motivational factors as well. If you fail on hygiene factors, well, then you're going to stumble. Okay? But you can't invest all of your energy into that. You need to do both. Now, here's another motivational theory from McClellan. Specific needs are acquired or learned over time and shaped by life experiences, including achievement, affiliation, and power. All right, that's it. Um, so, achievement, people have a high need for, people with a high need for achievement, like challenging projects with achievable goals and lots of feedback. People with a high need for affiliation desire harmonious relationships and need to feel accepted by others. People with a need for power desire either personal power, not good, well, not good for the group, or institutional power, good for the organization. Managers should provide institutional power seekers with management opportunities. So here, as with all these kind of um, motivational theories, it's different strokes for different folks. Not all of your people on your team are going to be at the same in the same spot with regard to any of these theories. Okay, so it's helpful to see them as individuals, okay, and to use these kinds of analyses in order to tailor your approach for that individual person on your team. McGregor's theory X and theory Y and Uchi's theory Z. I've always loved these. So McGregor is Douglas McGregor, who popularized the human relations approach to management in the 1960s. And he posited two kind of management themes, okay, or theories, the theory X and theory Y. And he didn't say one was good and one was bad. That's why he called them theory X and theory Y. Theory X assumes that workers dislike and avoid work, so managers must use coercion, threats, and various control schemes to get workers to meet objectives. Theory Y assumes individuals consider work as natural as play or rest and enjoy the satisfaction and esteem and self actualization needs. So, in my experience, okay, certain workers do better with the theory X approach, and certain workers do better with the theory Y approach, having to do with the way they feel about work. Okay. It's also affected by what kind of work you have. Okay. If you're trying to do, let's say um, we've got some work that nobody really enjoys doing, like cleaning bathrooms. Okay. Very few people really enjoy cleaning the bathroom. Okay. Well, then you probably have to throw some theory X at it. And we've got some work that nearly everybody enjoys. Well, you probably throw some theory Y at that. So again, I think the successful project manager is thoughtful about what kind of work they're trying to give to people and what kind of natural ideas about work those individuals have. And they try to tailor the kind of supervision that they're going to give them to the circumstances at hand. Now, Uchi has the theory Z. He emphasizes motivating workers and increasing loyalty by providing a job for life with a strong focus on well-being of the employee, both on and off the job. Well, uh, I think that's probably uh, uh, I think it's meant to be an alternative to this XY dichotomy. That if this will work even for work that is not particularly appealing if we treat the worker the right way. We have a media snapshot here talking about what happened after the pandemic hit in 2020. We had a lot of people who didn't lose their job, who went on and quit their job. They started to think about work in a different way, right? So, and some organizations did better at keeping workers than others. Okay, so here's a case where a dramatic change in the environment that people were working in, changed mm, their reactions. Okay, and so again, project managers ought to be thoughtful about all this. Um, some more academic, research oriented stuff that can help the project manager comes from Thamhain and Willimon's Ways to Have Influence on Projects. So I particularly like this one. So how can a project manager have influence over the people who are on their project? Well, they can have authority. They can, so the influence can come from authority, from assignment, from the budget, from promotion, from money. So authority is the legitimate hierarchical right to issue orders. Assignment, the project manager's perceived ability to influence a worker's later work assignments. Budget, the project manager's perceived ability to authorize others' use of discretionary funds. Promotion, the ability of the project manager to improve a worker's position. And money, the ability to increase a worker's pay and benefits. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. We have even more. I knew that one of these kept on going. Uh, then we have penalty, work challenge, expertise, and friendship. So, penalty, the project manager's ability to cause a punishment. Work challenge, the ability to assign work that capitalize on the worker's enjoyment of doing a particular task. Expertise, the project manager's perceived special knowledge that others deem important. And friendship, the ability to establish friendly personal relationships between the project manager and others. So, not all these are equal, okay? So, the research indicated that projects are more likely to succeed when the project managers have influence that come from their expertise or their ability to offer people challenging work. Okay? Projects are more likely to fail when the project managers rely too heavily on authority, money, and penalty. And this is, I think, pretty natural. Heavy-handed management wears out. Okay, so I think if you're in a very tough temporary situation, heavy-handed management can get the job done. But over the long haul, heavy-handed management is not effective. So let's talk about effectiveness. So here's another researcher. I'm not sure that Covey is as much a researcher as kind of a soothsayer, but Stephen Covey wrote a book or books on, I think books on 7 habits to improve effectiveness on projects. And he said, be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first, think win-win, seek to understand, then to be understood, synergize, sharpen the saw. My favorite one is sharpen the saw because for me, I think that as a project manager, that was more likely my blind spot. And the idea here is that look for opportunities to change the way that we're doing things, to improve a tool, to improve a process. Don't don't try to beat a dead horse, right? Um, you can't. You're not always going to succeed by working harder. Often, you can kind of interrupt, uh, retool a bit, change your approach, and be much more effective uh, after the intervention. Empathetic listening and rapport are good things. So, good project managers are empathetic listeners. They listen with the intent to understand. Before you can communicate with others, you have to have a rapport, a relation of harmony, comfort, accord, or affinity with them. So, this is often a problem for new technical project managers who I think have succeeded on the basis of being smart and being good executors themselves, but maybe not from being good listeners or building a good rapport with coworkers. And now they come into responsibility of being a project manager, and their success is going to really it's going to be determined much more on these skills that maybe they haven't been polishing, like empathetic listening and rapport building. Mirroring is a technique that I've always been kind of suspicious of, but research shows that you do well to mirror the behavior of other people who you're trying to relate to uh, as a way to build rapport with them. And we have a slide in a bit that purports to be an example of that. Oh, that's it. So there's a story here on slide number 44 that purports to be an example of somebody having used mirroring uh, to the benefit of all involved. Okay, so we're about halfway through, so I'm going to wind up this part one, and I'll be back shortly with part two. Bye for now.